We should be getting started soon, guys. Welcome today to this special webinar. Um, we should be starting in about 5 minutes. For those of you just joining us live, um, make sure can you guys hear me clearly? Just say yes in the chat so I can know, make sure the audio is good. All right. And if you guys have any questions, just make sure you post it in the chat because we got something special for you guys today. So make sure you stay to the end of the webinar. Okay, this is gonna be amazing. Oh my goodness, man. Oh my goodness. I'm super excited, super pumped for the two doctors coming on the show today. You guys gonna learn so much. All right. So for those of you joining us on YouTube, just put your message here. And if you have any questions, you can post on it. We'll try to get to as many questions as we possibly can. We usually have a lot of questions. So if we don't get to your questions, I'll give you guys my company information so you guys can definitely send us a message, okay? But I hope everybody's doing amazing today. Got a lot of people registered for this webinar, so it should be good. All right. Hey, Pat Russell, how you doing? We got a lot of people already checked in. All right. So, hey, welcome, Chi. GT here. What's up, King? Dr. Bokolo, Leanne, Natasha, Pooja, Vikram, Wayun. What's up? How you guys doing? Hamid, welcome, everybody. Welcome to the show today. All right. We're gonna try to see if we can actually get this live on IG too, but maybe possible not, maybe not. We'll see. It's gonna be a little tough. See if we can get it. Maybe not. We'll see. All right, so we should be getting started in about 3 more minutes. So we have the option for the chat. I'm just gonna give you guys a quick update. So for those of you who are still joining us live, USMLE Step 2 CK 678 is no longer available. So now they have, used to be 6, 7, and 8. Now we have 9, 10, and 11. So if you guys are taking Step 2 CK, make sure that you're aware of that. So those are the brand new NBME that's been released. Came out about almost 2 months ago now, a month and a half. So definitely check it out. So if you guys are studying for Step 2 CK, if you guys are applying for residency this year, please make sure you already have your personal statement almost done. Get your letters of recommendations because September 28th is the deadline, guys. September 28th. What I mean by the deadline, because September 29th is when program directors are going to be opening the applications. You need to have that number memorized in your head so that you're not, you're not behind, right? Because one of the number one reasons IMGs typically struggle is because they don't have all their stuff together before that deadline, and then you're applying from behind. Now, even if you don't have your Step 2 CK score, still apply, and don't wait for your Step 2 CK or Step 3 if you guys are applying for this cycle. All right, because come September 29, all the programs are going to automatically get the first batch of application. They'll send out all the invites. With COVID and everything, it's going to be a lot of virtual. So, so you want to know if you're going to be going virtual. It's going to be in-person interviews you guys are going to be getting this year. But COVID's, we're still in the middle of the pandemic, so a lot of things are still virtual. So also that brings us to the fact that more interviews are usually given out now because it's virtual than before. And literally, and people who didn't get interviews before from past years are getting more interviews. So if you guys are applying this cycle, if you have all your scores and you have, there's a higher probability you're going to get more interviews than from previous years. So, all right. Actually, hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. Got one of our special guests here in the building. Oh my goodness, man. I'm super, super excited. We already have a lot of people checked in, so this is going to be fun. We also have another special guest who'll be joining us. So for sure, if you guys, he'll be part of the show later, but I will first, oh, here it is. He's joining us. So amazing. All right, guys. Today's gonna be very, very special. Welcome, Dr. Musonza. Did I say your name right?
Yes, it's correct.
And Dr. Wilner, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Lucina.
All right, awesome. Oh my gosh. This is great. This is great. So, okay, so I'm gonna introduce these two special guests because they have something in common they don't know yet, which I'm gonna tell you guys later. And y'all gonna know that you guys maybe know each other a little bit, but maybe not. So let me we're gonna start the webinar officially. So everybody, welcome to the IMG Smash USMLE IMG Success webinar. I'm your host, Dr. Adeloke Adeshina. I'm the ER physician and the CEO and founder of Smash USM Reviews. I've got these two amazing doctors here today that are going to be sharing their stories with you. Their stories is going to blow your mind. Make sure you stay to the end of this because what they're going to share with you, you're not going to find this information free on the internet. So if you guys have any questions, please post your questions in the chat. We're going to try to get to as much as possible. We will start with Dr. Musonza. And then we're going to start after that with Dr. Wilner. So I'm going to share my screen so I can introduce this gentleman to you guys. All right. Okay. So we're going to talk about how to match into radiology residency, one of the most competitive residency as an IMG, and how to score a 245 on the USMLE, even though you started with a low MBME score. Remember, guys, anything is possible if you believe in God and you believe in yourself. You guys always know that's my mantra, man. If you believe in God and you believe in yourself, you can accomplish anything. Now, let me introduce Dr. Clive to you. He's an IMG from Zimbabwe, went to med school in Cuba. He completed his MPH at the Washington University and did some research at Johns Hopkins. He matched into diagnostic radiology, the clinical sciences track this year, and his research interest in big data, specifically data science applications to clinical medicine. Our second speaker is Dr. Wilner Lyons. All right, Dr. Wilner's journey in medicine started in Cuba after passing 2 years studying diplomatic science at State University of Haiti. Dr. Lyons is a magna cum laude graduate of ELAM, which is the Latin American School of Medicine in Cuba. He trained at the Department of Emergency Medicine during his residency at the National Polytechnic Institute in Mexico. And during his residency, he started to teach emergency medicine courses at BLS, ACLS, ATLS, and has been doing it ever since for the last 4 years. He's also been working as an attending physician at emergency department for the last 3 years at the Mexican Institute of Social Security, the greatest medical institution in Latin America. His practices focuses on attending patients with life-threatening conditions like teaching medical students, interns, residents. Dr. Lyons is a member of the ABC College of Emergency Medicine, and he teaches emergency subjects in more than 12 states in the Mexican Republic. Dr. Lyons has worked as a response center doctor for the International SOS, a company that provides online and offshore medical assistance to many oil companies, mining companies, and U.S. Army all over the world. Without further ado, guys, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you guys to the show today. Thank you so much, Dr. Clive Musonza and Dr. Wilner. Thank you for coming, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
So we're gonna start with Dr. Musonza, right? So both of you guys went to school in Cuba, number one, right? Do y'all know each other?
No.
You're muted.
No, we don't know each other, but I wish maybe we had met like at an earlier time.
So which medical school did you go to school, Dr. Musonza?
It's in the central province in Cuba. It's called Camagüey, about
So
7
what-
hours from Havana.
Okay, so both of you guys speak Spanish, correct?
Mhm.
Both of you went to school in Cuba. What are the odds both of you guys are here today, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, Dr. Clive, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? We want to get to know you. Share with the audience. Go ahead.
So, as you have heard, I'm from Zimbabwe, and straight after high school, I went to med school in Cuba. I spent 7 years there. 1 year was of the Spanish language. Then, after graduating from med school, I went back to Zimbabwe, worked for about 8 months before I came here to the United States. I have family here. So, after coming here, I started studying for step one and also preparing to go to grad school. Because it's a little bit hard when you want to get used to the US education system just to meet people outside, like, doctors and everything for recommendation letters. So the easiest way was to go to grad school. And I was able to get into MPH at Washington University in St. Louis. I was also a master's research. When going to Washington University in St. Louis, I was a master's research fellow in global health and nutrition. And I thought maybe I was going to be interested in global health. But just after starting, I realized I had a passion in epidemiology and biostatistics. So I ended up specializing in epidemiology and biostatistics during my MPH. And that's when I got to meet some radiologists. And for my practicum in MPH, I was working with a radiologist on a data set that they have about African-American individuals and other minorities, like a data set of MRI, about 100 individuals. We were just looking, especially, as you know, minorities, especially Black population, they're prone to have sickle cell, strokes, and everything. So we are trying to find ways to improve their outcomes. So from there, I was also doing research with my mentor, global health, especially nutritional research in Haiti, Ecuador, and in Kenya. So after graduating, I then moved. I came to New York at Icahn School of Medicine, where I was working in the cardiology department on their clinical trials on lipid-lowering new drugs coming, like monoclonal antibodies, like the next generation. I worked there for about 6 months. Then I decided I had to stop. I didn't really like the place, but I also wanted to focus on taking my step 2 CK. So early last year, I stopped like 2019 December, intending to take my step 2 CK in March. But the problem was COVID-19 came, shutdowns and everything. To cut the story short, my exam was postponed a couple of times. I eventually took it in California end of May. Then in July, I started working at Hopkins in infectious disease research, and for about a year until June this year when I matched into, I applied for match last year in October, and this year I matched at UT Southwestern in radiology, but I'm doing my preliminary year here in Long Island, New York.
Okay, so wow, that's impressive. So let's start with the year of graduation. What year did you graduate from medical school?
2015. Yeah, it's been a long time.
So you're telling me you graduated 2015 and you didn't match to 2021?
I was never really worried because I knew I was doing something. And one thing I can let like other IMGs who have had so many years after graduating, don't worry about it. And I was never asked the question, year of graduation and everything. I'm sure probably a few programs filtered me because of my year of graduation, but I had over 20 interviews, so I'm not worried about those who filtered me. So many, I still got like enough, more than enough, that if it was, the other advantage of the last season was, interviews were virtually. Otherwise, if it was traveling, I don't think I would have been able to do more than 20 interviews traveling.
So let's go. Why did you say you were interested in research, right? A lot of IMGs do MPH in the United States, right? Did you have a plan that, okay, I'm going to go into MPH just to get the degree, or you just getting it because you wanted to do research?
I wanted the degree as well. Like I said, I worked in Zimbabwe for about 8 months. And there's a shortage of doctors, and I realized that there was a role for public health, especially to be able to reach a wider population. So I really needed the skills like for MPH, but it ended up helping me with so many things. I was able to network with other physicians. Washington University in St. Louis, their medical school is top 10 in the country, lots of research going on. So when I started my MPH, I wasn't really sure. Like I said, also, I thought I was going to do global health and everything, but you realize that that's what happens every day. Sometimes you don't know when you don't have a lot of opportunities available to you, you think probably this is what I'm going to do. But if you go to an institution which has so many opportunities, you end up realizing that there's so much more, and you end up, even going for bigger things or going for things that, are more suitable to yourself.
So when we talked, you talked about getting a scholarship to University of Washington. Can you tell us about how you got a full ride to go to university as an IMG? And did you have a visa or you're a US citizen?
No, I'm not a citizen. I'm not a green card holder. But what I would say is I just applied like anyone else. It's just that, yeah, the application process, I think it's how I put it. Just like Match, you don't have to rush anything. You just have to take your time, apply, especially now the season will be starting like in December for MPH programs. I believe the earliest ones, it's around December 1st. Yeah, it was quite involving. Like I said, I came here around April, end of April 2016. Then I started preparing for GRE, TOEFL, and all those exams to get them out of the way. I think I was done by September. Then I started studying for my step one while I was applying to MPH. So I applied for MPH programs in December, early January. Then I took my step one around 2017 March, about 3 months later. So yeah, the process is more of like being organized and making sure, because it's a lot of paperwork that you need, even letters of recommendation. They still want your faculty to be able to write you something. But what I would say is, as an IMG, you already have a medical degree. You already have an advantage. If you know what you want and you're interested, you fit the program really well, you definitely get the scholarships. Don't be afraid to apply. There's so much money out there that you might not need to even pay for your education or anything. Yeah, US institutions, they have so many resources, and I think it's worth it.
Do you, because this is really good information for people who want to come and do an MPA, there's a potential opportunity to get a scholarship. Do you have a website or something that we can check out, or like, they just apply to University of Washington, which is one of the top schools, or other schools, and ask for their scholarship opportunity?
I tried to look for the universities on their websites. Usually they do have that information like on scholarships. Almost every college has a scholarship. But what I did was I just went and I looked at the public health. One thing I knew about MPH is whichever college, most colleges here in America that have an MPH program, they have a medical school as well. So going in, I already knew that, once you're part of the institution, whether you're doing public health, it doesn't really matter, because some of my classes, I actually chose some electives at the medical school, especially on randomized controlled trials and everything. I was able to continue working with the professors. So what I just did is I just went ahead, looked at the top 10 schools, and I looked at schools that I thought I had, realistic chance of applying to. Some schools like Hopkins, I did not apply, which is currently number one. But you don't really need those, because, the other reason I didn't like Hopkins was like their MPH program. It was just 1 year. 1 year programs are okay. As an IMG, you might want to, finish everything. You're worried about your year of graduation, but there's a downside to doing a 1 year program. It's pretty intense. You're in class from like maybe 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. You don't have time to do anything else. So yeah, you finish in 1 year, but 2 year programs have an advantage. Now, if you're doing a 2 year program, it means you have a lot of downtime, free time. Then you can start, applying for research positions. You can start, working on publications and everything else that you need. And you get to choose a lot of electives. 1 year programs, yeah, they might have 1 or 2 electives. But for me, we had tons of electives that I ended up choosing from and everything. And I think that has worked out pretty well.
So how did you do on step one?
I mean, I just tried the best I could. What I can, I think I was okay. I was a little bit surprised. I was nervous before the exam, just like anybody else. I did not sleep the night before. I think this is what I will always remember, that I was used to studying like until like 1 or 2 a.m. every day. And the night before the exam, I tried to sleep around 8 or 9. It doesn't happen that way. So I only slept for about 2 hours until 11 p.m. I was awake until 5:30 in the morning. Then 6 a.m. I'm preparing to go to the Prometric Center. But the way I think what helped me was just that I was used to to studying like, long hours. So even that 8 or 9 hours of step one was nothing, even without sleep. I was already used to the rigors of, not sleeping and still working under pressure. So it all comes down to how you are preparing the materials, because some of these things do happen. If you're used to sleeping on time and everything the night before, you are nervous and everything, it happens to everyone. So just try to put yourself to extremes, and you'll be able to entrust your prep, your NBME scores and everything, like, when you're preparing, especially for step one. Step two is different, but for step one, those ones, they really matter. They tell you like how you're progressing and what your weak areas are, and how you can improve.
Okay. Are you okay sharing your scores, or are we going to keep it private?
No, I mean, I can share. I don't have any problems. I got 253 like in step one.
Great. How long did it take you to study though for step one?
I think it's hard to say. Like I told you, the first year when I was here, I was focused on applying for public health. So I would just look at, small things and just looking at, my weak areas, what it was. But I think around November, just after I finished when I started my applications for MPH and everything, that's when I started studying for step one, like seriously. And that's when I got my eligibility period, period as well, which was from January to March. So basically from December, that Christmas, I remember, it was snowing, but, and times were hard, but I ended up, taking it in March. So I would say, for step one, it's more of like, it's not how you do in the prep, like how long you take. It's something that you start taking even when you're in medical school. You are reading, I had done a few questions, a few question banks and everything. So I was a little bit comfortable with the material. It's just that, with other things going, time will be different. But I think for myself, I consider myself a slow reader. So I would normally give myself about 6 months.
Okay. Now, how was step two CK?
Step two CK, the only thing was I took time to, because I took my step one in March 2017. Then I took my step two CK in 2020. So in between, that's when I was doing my MPH, and lots of research and my research jobs and as well. So I just told myself, because I have friends who applied like, a couple of years ago, even the year before me, and you feel pressure, should I take it? But I always told myself that as long as I felt I was not ready, I was not going to take it, because those scores, they do matter. Give it your best shot whenever you have time, and, you try to take the exam at a more opportune time. So that's why I ended up quitting my job. I thought it was just going to be about 3 months. It ended up being 5 months that I was just home with lockdowns and everything. And I took my exam in May, and I got a 250 in CK.
That's pretty impressive numbers. So how did you head up at Hopkins?
Like I said, I mean, one thing you will realize in research is, you work with different people, and depending on the team you're working with, you want to also feel supported, and, or to see what opportunities are there. So I just applied since I already had like about 3 years, because in MPH, it really counted. I did a lot of research. So it was 2 years as a research fellow. Then about 7 months at Icahn School of Medicine. So afterwards, I just started applying. I knew I had the skills, and MPH, like, I had learned so much in terms of research, public health, and everything that I needed. And but I think you can still match. I actually met a lot of IMGs who have postdoc positions and everything. I did not have a postdoc position. I was just like a research coordinator. And they've applied, they don't even have MPH and everything. And, just depending on what your interests are. So I was doing research, like I said, in infectious diseases, which is one thing that I want to let, IMGs who are here. It doesn't matter what sort of research you are doing. It doesn't matter to the programs, because anyways, if even whatever university, they tend to focus on, they have strengths in certain area of research. So you might realize that University A, they have strength in cardiology, and another university, maybe neurosurgery or basic sciences. It doesn't matter. What matters is, do you have the skills to do research? And you can always adapt to the whatever environment that you go to. So I hear a lot of IMGs worried that, I want to do GI, or where can I be a postdoc or whatever it is. just get that research position in internal medicine or cardiology or whatever it is. And what you have to understand is, for example, you are interested in cardiology. If you get a research position in rheumatology, for example, you know there are complications like, hardcore complications from all these diseases, be it lupus or whatever it is. So you can end up publishing something. So don't limit yourself. That's what I would say. Just have the skills that you need, know how to, learn how to conduct research. And for the most part, don't worry even if you don't have a lot of experience. I didn't have a lot of experience either coming here to the United States. And, they normally get to teach you, and, you get to do as much as you can, depending on what you want to do. So it's very much possible.
Wow. So we're going to give you a break. And then we're going to switch to our next, because there's so much to unpack within both of you guys. Somehow you end up in 82. I don't know what's up. Like, he's from 80. Like, what do you, right? You said something about doing research in 80?
Oh, yeah, I did global health. It was mainly children, like 6 months to about 3 years, like, nutritional intervention and everything. Yes, I did a lot of research there.
Okay, this is great. This is amazing. All right, we're gonna bring in Dr. Wilner. Okay, welcome to the show. All right, and we're gonna get to meet you officially. So Dr. Wilner, tell us a little about yourself.
Good afternoon to all. Thank you, Dr. Adesina, for this opportunity. Congratulations to Dr. Musansa. I'm very proud of you. First of all, I would like to say I'm not fluent in English. My English is still very bad, I think. I'm trying to improve English. For now, after passing my step 1, the goal in short term is to improve my English and study for CK. And I will try to do my best to communicate in the fluent manner. I'm from Haiti, like you said, Dr. Adesina, and in Haiti, I was studying diplomatic sciences. After 2 years, I decided to go to Cuba. I won a fellowship. I got to Cuba. I studied medicine from 2006 to 2012. After that, I came back to Haiti. I did my social service, and during 10 months, after that, I decided to go to Mexico, and where I did my specialty in emergency medicine. After the specialty, I decided to take the step. I started studying in maybe 2 years ago, but for some familial issues, I had to stop during 9 months, maybe I think. And maybe 40 months ago, I started one again. And the last month, I just present my exam, and the result.
So tell us about how you found Smash USMLE. What was the process like? And when you took your MBME, you told me a little bit about what happened. Tell the audience. Yeah, your English is good, by the way. Your English is good.
Okay, thank you. And I had been studying for maybe 3 or 4 months, and I decided to take the first MBME. And I was very surprised that my score was 120. And I decided to look for some help. This is where on social media, I heard about Smash USMLE, and I decided to buy the subscription. I got the privilege, the opportunity to work with JIT. He helped me a lot. And after 2 months of working together, maybe 6 weeks, the next MBME, I passed from 120 to 100, almost 150, no, 70, 169. The next MBME after 2 months working with JIT. And we keep working together. He helped me a lot. He provided me some interesting materials that I used during the long process. And finally, I was scoring above 240 or 230 in the NBME, and I decided to write the exam.
So how did you finally do?
I In the real exam,
Yeah,
240, 245, 245.
that's
I
pretty
was
good.
I was expecting 250, but I got 245.
I don't think that's a bad score at all. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
you know, so you came from 120 to 245 in a matter of, you said 4 months?
One year, 1 year.
One year, right?
1 year.
That is pretty impressive, right? What was the biggest change for you? What did you find that you when you were scoring that low? Because a lot of students are like, I'm stuck in a low MBME score and I can't improve. What was the switch?
Okay. First of all, I'll start with first aid, only first aid. I didn't use any other materials when I scored. When I start. And when I first met with Jid, he did a plan for me, and we tried to apply everything he taught me. And he provided me some videos, and I use also some videos from Smash SMLE that helped me boost basic science. And after I finish first aid, 2 passes, UWorld, and the videos that Jit provided me, my score was on maybe 210. I was talking on 210. I took 2 or 3 NBMEs. Score were very similar, 208, 209, 210. And we decided, Jit and I, he recommended me to get another QBank. We bought Amboss. I did Amboss during 6 weeks, about 5 or 6 blocks per day. And after Amboss, next MBME was 227. And when I finished Amboss completely, next MBME was 239, almost 240.
Wow.
I think that doing another QBank was very helpful for me to improve.
Amazing. So you are an emergency medicine physician right now in Mexico.
Right. Yes.
So
yes.
What do you do there?
At the emergency room at the moment. For now, I'm not working. I stopped working for the last 4 months to have the time to studying all the time. For the last 4 months, I was studying for about 12 to 14 hours per day, until 15 hours per day, from Monday to Saturday. This is why I stopped working for 5 months. The next week, maybe, I will go back to the hospital. But at the emergency room, we saw every patient in life-threatening conditions. And stroke, trauma, everything is ours at the emergency room. After the patient is stabilized, we canalize to the final specialist.
So you do pretty much what I do, right? Come in, stabilize, stroke, MIs, putting chest tubes, intubating, central lines, sick patients, septic shock, the whole gambit, right? It's so much fun. So you and I connect so much at so many levels. This is amazing. So I'm gonna flip back to for our audience, because I'm sure people have a lot of questions, right? So let me put both of you guys on the spotlight real quick. So here's a question I'm gonna start with Dr. Musonza, and then I'm gonna switch over to you. So Dr. Musonza, you talked about IMGs trying to rush the process. What gave you, you said, I don't care if I finish in 2015. I'm going to take about 5 years, before I reapply to get all my ducks in a row. Did you get a mentor or anybody to guide you through this process?
No, I did not have a mentor. I think the biggest lesson I just had was, to be on some of these forums, and I'm reading what other people are using. I used Student Doctor Network. And I also checked Facebook and everything to see. And also I had friends who tried to take the exam, rushed and everything. And some of them, they ended up having attempts. Some of them, they ended up giving up. So, and also with just, the material, like I said, step one, NBMEs are pretty predictive. So when you're taking them, you already know where you are standing, like, and what that you need to work a little bit more. That wasn't the case for step 2 CK, but it's more of like, I think you just have to realize that, we are all different. Some people have children, some people have, I don't know, their significant others. They have other responsibilities. Just find out who you are, how long, how much time you need to study. I agree with Dr. Wilner. I used to study as well, just sitting at home, like, dedicated time that December to March. It was more of like, I don't know, maybe 16 to 18 hours a day. And, just finding what sort of a person you are, because if you need to study 6 hours a day, then it's okay. Do what helps you. Find out what works for you. Don't work under pressure or anything. Take your time, because once you get these board scores, you don't have any, you cannot repeat or, try to change the score. So just look at it as if it's one shot, and that time you just have to be ready and, ready to go.
So when you apply for residency, because explain to people, because they don't know, like when you apply to radiology, there's a prelim track and there's the radiology residency. Can you elaborate so they can understand what that means?
So radiology is one of those specialties, I think, which are called advanced here, that you need a preliminary year. For radiology, it doesn't really matter. Like you can do a transitional year, you can do I'm doing preliminary surgery, you can do preliminary internal medicine, or even preliminary obs and gynae, even though obs and gynae, there are not a lot of sport like available in the country. So after that 1 year, usually it can be at a different program, then you move to your advanced program. Radiology, under normal circumstances, it's supposed to be 4 years, but my program I'm going to do, it's a 5-year program. I have to do 1 year of research. So after my preliminary year this year, I'll be doing a year of research, and I'll continue with that research until I finish my residency. So I just have 1 extra year. And the hope is by the time I graduate, I'm, well established as a researcher. I just move to fellowship or, another research institute, or set up a new research institute, depending on how much a research I would have done.
So when you apply,
other specialties like that, it's, if you are going into ophthalmology, if you're going into neurology, dermatology, or even plastics, you might need a preliminary year. Even PMNR, you also need a preliminary year. So I actually applied to 3 specialties for residency last year. I just wanted to make sure that, I leave no stone unturned. It was an experiment for me to say that I don't really care about year of graduation or everything, but you never know until you start applying, and getting those interviews, how things are going to go. So I applied, my first choice was always radiology. And I also applied to neurology as well. So neurology requires a preliminary year, but it has to be either a transitional year or internal medicine. You cannot do a preliminary year in surgery and do like neurology. It needs to be like internal medicine. So, and I also applied to internal medicine as a specialty, but the majority of my interviews were actually from radiology. I had 14 interviews in radiology, and I think about 5 in neurology and just 1 internal medicine, and the rest were just a preliminary year positions.
So that's pretty impressive, because, for you to get 1 internal medicine residency with a 250 plus on the USMLE, they probably realize what do you think? Like they saw your application, they'll be like, this guy has no interest in internal medicine.
I think I had less interviews in internal medicine, because at the time I did not know. Like I said, I started my job at Hopkins like in mid-July. So it took me a long time to even approach my boss and say that, I need a recommendation letter. I wanted him to see me a little bit more doing work and everything. But what ended up happening is, he's the best, most amazing boss. I couldn't have asked for anyone to be there. He was the chief of infectious diseases. He was really good. And so what happened is, in his recommendation letter, he had asked me what specialty I was applying to. So in his recommendation letter, he wrote that I was applying to radiology. And I think that hurt my chances a lot, especially with internal medicine. I remember even when I was in the beginning, I did not know in the first interview. So my first interview was actually what was it? I think University of Chicago neurology, and they were asking me, "Can you tell us about your interest?" They never really asked that. That was in my in my recommendation letter. But later on, when I was interviewing for a radiology position, they were like, "Oh, you have such amazing, you have an amazing trajectory, and you have such amazing recommendation letters." It was actually a neurology program. And they said, you have such amazing recommendation letters, and they started reading, excerpts from the recommendation letter. That's when they ended up, I ended up finding out that, my boss had written that I was applying into radiology. Then from there, I just learned how to talk out of it, because basically I would end up just telling them that, oh, yeah, we just mentioned I did research in radiology, so he thought maybe I was applying to radiology or something. But it wasn't really much of an issue, I think, and also I applied about 4 days late, because on the first day, with work and pressures, I only applied to all my radiology programs. I applied to about 137. Then the second day, I think I applied to 30 neurology programs. Then the third day, I applied to preliminary surgery, I think just about 10 programs. Then only on the fourth day, that's when I submitted applications for internal medicine and everything. And one thing I realized is one of the programs, when they couldn't give me an interview, they were like, oh yeah, we ended up choosing people, according to the date in which they submitted their application. And we had 5,500 applications for just about, 120 spots. So I would recommend that, if you're applying for residency, make sure you get your application on time and everything, that it's considered. Because delaying, they're getting so many applications, you might not get a chance, to have your application even be reviewed, especially if they're just interviewing like 120, even internal medicine with 250 or 200 interviews for about 20 spots, you still have to, apply on time, because it's a lot of applications that they have to go through.
Wow, that's pretty good. That's, impressive. So we got a few questions here. For your first question, I think you kind of talked about like, what were your strengths of your application that helped you receive 20 interviews? I think you did talk about that. But did you only apply physician scientist track for all the programs, and how much research experience and publication are needed to be competitive?
I applied. In fact, I only applied. They are only for radiology. I mean, I know every specialty does have one of those, even internal medicine and everything. But for radiology, I think the whole country has about 4 or 5 programs. I know of UT Southwestern, where I'll be going. I know University of San Francisco, Washington University in St. Louis, and 1 or 2 more. But programs that have the clinician scientist track. Not all the programs have it. So I only applied to that one. I'm not sure about, because you don't pay extra if you apply to the radiology program in that program. You don't pay extra, but you just have to select it and say that you're applying to the clinician scientist track. And I got the interviews.
Okay, so Wally's asking you, can you speak about best interviewing tips for IMGs?
Yeah, I mean, I know, scores can get you, an interview. That's how far I think your board scores are going to get you. But from there, now it's going to be your personality. They are also, you have to imagine, I think IMGs, at times you are afraid of this. You just, you think you're the one who is on the spot and you are being interviewed by the program. But yeah, the interview season, you're also interviewing the program, because you're choosing a program that you think is best fit for you and it will meet your needs as a person. So the biggest advice I can give someone in terms of interviewing is, as much practice as you can. For me, I was fortunate. I told you last year I was actually interviewing for positions before I went to Hopkins. I applied to so many positions, like research positions, and did so many interviews. Some of them, they would go really well, and a week later you end up receiving an email, just saying that we have decided to go with another candidate or whatever it is who best meets their needs. There was a good position I had gotten. I think it was Northwestern Chicago, like around May. I think I actually thought I was going to go like for that position. It was much higher. It was even actually better in neurology, but what ended up happening due to COVID-19, research had to be shut and they had to cut their budget and everything, so I couldn't go. So that helped me a lot, like in interviewing, like so many interviews, like earlier on last year, to the point that, now when I had to prepare for my residency interviews, I think I was really good at it, getting straight to the point and maximizing the 10, 12, or 20 minutes that you have to be, with your interviewer. And I think it worked quite well. So prepare as much as you can. And also just make sure, I've heard people, I was preparing with other people like online as well, IMGs, we had, I don't think it worked out that well. Ultimately, it's more of like me practicing with my friends and practicing with myself. But what I would say is don't sound scripted. Have your answers, be flexible. So when a question is coming, I just had, the general idea about myself. I wasn't rigid about, if they ask me, tell me about yourself or whatever it is, I'm going to say these things and it has to be a minute or whatever it is. No, just be adaptable to the situation. Usually they don't cut you off, especially on your first question. Tell me about yourself. Talk as much as you can about yourself. Sell yourself. That's the only time that, you are freewheeling and you're talking, because afterwards the questions, they might end up being specific and you might not have enough time to actually sell yourself. Because just imagine, try to put in all the points about yourself. And also if you talk really well, the longest possible time, like, tell me about yourself. I had people saying, it has to be 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. One thing I'll tell you for sure is they never stop you from talking, especially to tell me about yourself, because, you are basically talking about your trajectory, especially if you look at your CV, like ERA CV, where the way it comes out, it looks like mixed up or everything. So if faculty are going to be reading it and they're interviewing you, you have to try to walk them like, chronologically and say how it is. So, the more you practice, the more you know your CV, the more you are able to fill in the gaps. For example, my CV, it had so many positions which were, because I did so much like leadership positions, research and everything at Washington University. So they could see that, sometimes we're overlapping, some were not and everything. So I had to walk them through that so that they get to understand me as a person. And I think ultimately that helped me so much with the interviews and ending up to match like at my, my #1 program and, being there. So prepare. Don't be scripted. Just know about yourself. If a question comes, how do I adapt it? The way you are practicing is that same answer you are using for tell me about yourself or why you are applying here. You can tweak it like, 1 or 2 words and it still, moves to another question and everything. So as long as you're flexible, because you don't know how that person is going to, ask the question and the pressures you're feeling and everything. So you might feel rushed or you might end up forgetting some things. But if you're flexible, you're not going to stammer in front of your interviewer. You're going to maximize your 12 minutes. And I think ultimately, practice. Don't be scripted. Be flexible. Say as much as you can, and and just be adaptable. Look at the person who is interviewing you. Be able to get the clues. If you say something that's not quite right, or they look like they don't understand, walk them through. What do you mean? Because, as international medical graduates, we use different terms. In as much as we all speak English and whatever it is, there are some words that I still use, like even in Spanish, I use some terms that, a Mexican or someone from a different country might, understand it differently. So when you say something and you find someone doesn't, because they don't actually ask you for the most part, then you see someone looks a little bit surprised or they don't understand it, walk them through. What do you mean exactly? You have terms that you use, like, in med school, maybe to mean like a sub-internship or whatever it is. Don't just leave the word hanging, explain it to them, and just be as efficient as possible, and you'll do well in your interviews.
I agree with you, because I think the challenge for immigrants is that we do this auto translation in our brain from what we want to say to what we want to convey. And that's always that biggest challenge, because when I came to America, right, and I spoke English in Nigeria, but I noticed when I speak it to the American people, they're like, huh? And for example, the way I pronounce the human heart is like in that country, I just call it heart, right? And everybody understood like that's the heart, right? So I'm trying to explain to a biology professor, like, how many chambers does the human heart have? But then the guy said, what are you talking about? The heart doesn't have any chamber. And it became this communication issue. I knew what I was saying. The guy, so I had to say, oh, I'm talking about the heart that's beating in your chest. It's like, oh, you mean the heart? Okay, that has 4 chambers, got an aorta. And that's something as simple as that. It's something that I would tell people, like, when you listen to watching American movies or listening, then you would notice that there's a way they stress words, right? They blend the words together sometimes. And for us in Africa or like other parts of the world, we break the words into syllables. I don't know if you guys do that in Cuba or like in Haiti. Like we break words into, that's how we take words, we break it apart and we put it together. And that's how we learn how to pronounce. So for example, I want to say, toilet. I had to say toilet because that's how I break the words. And I think here it says the restroom. I'm like, the restroom? So there's a couple of things like that I think IMGs find difficult when they try to speak and talk, but you know exactly what you're talking about. So it's a good point that you say, make sure you clarify any words in your country, like a sub internship, might be actually an intern that's working in the, that's your first year of residency. Like, we call it residency here. They might call it housemanship in your country. Make sure you clarify what that means in your country so they know that you're not like a medical student. You're actually like a resident that's, working in the hospital and not managing patients. So that's a really, really good point. Okay. So we got another question here. We've got Dr. Felicia is from Cuba. She's Cuban trained grad. She's working as a doctor in her country and she graduated in 2015. She said, congratulations to both of you. And the first question is to Dr. Wilner. This is for you. How did you reinforce and remember those fine details that require pure memorization, like proto-oncogenes? Like that's where I have an issue. Like she doesn't have a problem with diagnosis and management, but do you have any tips for those ridiculous minutia, like HLA B27? And why don't we start with Dr. Winner and then we have Dr. Musonza give us his pitch, okay?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Felicia. I think that those fine details are very tricky for everyone. They were very tricky for me too. And what I used to do is using flashcards and spaced repetition and mnemonics. I mastered those fine details until the last month, maybe the last 4 or 3 weeks before the exam. Before this period, I was studying these things like glycogen storage disease, like proto-oncogene, but 4 or 3 weeks later, you almost forget everything. Only in the last 2 weeks before the exam, I make doing spaced repetition with those things, mnemonic and flashcards. This is why I mastered this.
What about you, Dr. Musonza?
What I would say is, repetition it helps a lot. So usually what I would do is, I think I learned this when I was also doing English because for GRE, just write, those difficult genes or minutiae when you're going through, be it a question bank or whatever it is, write it down. So every day when I would wake up in the morning, I had a certain routine. I would watch some videos for about an hour or two. Before I start watching the video. In fact, when I wake up in the morning, what I would do is I would look at those, there's some drug names which are complicated or the particular formula that I saw on whatever it is. So whenever I would see something like that I know this is new and I really need to know, not really like, how, like, I wasn't worried about, the whole algorithm about how things are going, but, I used it like a dictionary. If I look at a new gene, proto-oncogene, a new drug or whatever it is, I would write its name and write its, what's its definition, like, and just continue like that, in a normal book. And I think I ended up having like over 400 of those, like, I would number them. So when I wake up in the morning, before I start studying, I just look at maybe the first page or first 2 pages. Then I continue until I get to the last page. Then I start over again. Like, every day I'll be doing like, a few words, like, I don't know, 20 words per day or 30. Then afterwards, I would watch videos for about 1.5 hours or 2 hours. Then I start studying like, the materials that I needed to do. So, that repetition every day. At first, I might have just 10 words, right? Like today, maybe I saw 10 new words. I just write their definition. So it means tomorrow I'll be doing those 10 words and I add some more. The next day I'll be having 12. So every day I'm looking at it, it ends up being second nature. And now when you're doing questions and everything and you're having that repetition, it helps you. Because if you just look at something once and you try, like you said, after about a month or two, you easily forget, because it's a lot of material. I have to admit, yeah, it's a lot, but repetition helps a lot. It's just having a routine that helps you. It can be flashcards, it can be whatever it is, a medium that you think works really well for you. For me, I'm a visual learner. I prefer to just write it down and have to look at it again, with my handwriting and everything, and I get it after some time, after a couple of times.
And I agree with you guys. So for me, like what I did even when I was in medical school was I did the flashcards, but I bought some detachable whiteboards, and I used to put them in my apartment everywhere, right? Like it's a bunch of whiteboards that you can buy on Amazon. And if I'm doing like a biochemical pathway, some exophosphate shunt pathway, and I'm not going to remember transketolase or what the hell is doing, or protoporphyrin pathway with heme synthesis, right? You're not going to remember like porphyria and enzyme mutation, all these things. So I'll write it on the board. So when I wake up in the morning, I've got this chart that I'm looking at, I'm like, and you have to see it every day. This is the stuff that doesn't go away. Like you don't flip a book, close it, like like you do flashcard, Dr. Winter, Dr. Musonga does, put in a book. You have to have it in front of you somewhere to remind you constantly, and also attach it to a disease, right? That's another thing. Like if it's just pure memorization, but there's a disease that's overarching, right? CFTR mutation with, cystic fibrosis. Well, that's one piece that's always dangling on the tree of, cystic fibrosis. So attach that to the disease, right? HLA-B27 spondyloarthropathies with, psoriasis and whatever, put it on the wall or put it in a flashcard, because you have to constantly see it. Right. That is the key, right? That repetition, it doesn't, whatever works for you. Like I've had flashcards, I've done, and that's the stuff, like that's about 20% of the test that it's never going to go away. It's going to hunt you on the exam day. And like you said, the last 2 weeks of the exam, you better be like eating that up nonstop. That's what I give you guys also as a little tip. All right.
What
So we got,
did,
go ahead.
Sorry. What I also did is I marked that page with tricky stuff, with memorization stuff. And I know that in the last 4 or in the last 2 weeks, or in the last week, I will be reviewing those things once more again. And during the dedicated study period, I printed some sheet with the tricky things. For example, if you see here I have in my, my formulas that I wrote during the exam. You can maybe do it too, also.
Yeah. What I would say in terms of that, there's no escaping like, a repetition or anything. It's just having a system that, and also with step 1, especially for an IMG, when you're starting, right, you have to limit your resources as well. I cannot, if you are just in first year and you're starting and you think you're going to take your step 1 in third year, then probably you have enough time. But what I ended up realizing is choose, proven materials for you to do your step 1 and limit your resources as much as possible. I think that's one of the best advice I actually found, because you see, using different resources, they're going to have different mnemonics for memorizing these issues. So if you end up having 5 ways of memorizing it, it sounds as if like you have so many ways you can end up remembering a thing, but no. You have so much you're trying to remember for the exam, and it ends up confusing you. So if you just stick to the materials that you're using, limit. For me, what I told myself, like when I was doing it, is limiting my materials, like maybe to a question bank, because at the time I couldn't afford even to buy like other prep materials and everything. I would have used it for sure. I wanted to, but I just couldn't afford it. But what I would say is, I would use just a question bank mainly for my questions and a few like books. Then when I meet something new that I don't know, a condition or whatever it is, I used to just Google it, like look for the condition, like how to do a certain maneuver. There's so many videos, good videos on YouTube. You'll find it. Wikipedia. I'm not saying they are the best resources or whatever it is, just for that one word. Because I would look at it like in my question bank and I still don't understand what they mean with the medication and everything. I just wanted something that would explain it a little bit further and will help me memorize. But I would just stick to the few resources that I had. And that saves you a lot of time. It makes you a little bit organized, because the more you repeat that material that you're using 2 or 3 times, the better, rather than just spreading it with so many materials that are telling you different ways of doing the same thing. You end up, maybe you don't get it, you end up confusing yourself, because in the exam you have a split second. It's those small things. There's that small gene. It seems like it's something easy, right? But when you're gonna go into that question and now they have 5 choices, the painful part is, you can get to a question and you're like, oh, I don't know, let me just guess and move on. The painful part is to get there and you have 2 answers, A and E, that look similar. And now it's like you're flipping a coin. If you had just reviewed that material like a little bit slow and you were going to save your time, you just go through that question. Because most of the materials, like I believe, like for someone to get like 180 on USMLE, you can just do it like, just getting like the normal questions and everything. But to start getting over 200, 230, 250, yeah, then you have to start, doing a little bit more, saving time. Some of these minutiae, they seem minutiae when you're looking at it. You're like, oh, maybe I'll remember it. But, they'll give you a clinical scenario to try and trip you off and everything. So if you have it on the fingertips, then you're saving time. You're not wasting a lot of time. Then those harder questions, you have more time for the longer, harder questions and everything, and you end up getting a better score. But I think people who end up not doing well is like they did not focus on things that they thought it was easy. Now it came in the exam, rather than them getting it easily and saving time and moving to harder questions. They're wasting more time there, and they still have a 50-50 chance. It's either A or E, I don't know. They were able to cancel out the other answer choices, but now it doesn't mean anything to say, oh, at least I knew 2, but it's either you get it or you're wrong. It doesn't, you don't get partial, you don't get credit for partial answers. So yeah, just, make sure what like my advice would be for step 1, make sure that those small things, what you know it for sure, and you will get those points. The harder part, yeah, I mean, those are the parts that, it has to be 50-50, and it might end up going your way, and it makes a difference between probably a 240 and a 250 or whatever it is, but you still end up doing relatively well on the exam.
Okay, this is my own question for both of you guys. How did you guys overcome test anxiety on the actual exam? We're going to start with, let's start with Dr. Wilner. How did you overcome the anxiety? Because, you use UWorld, you Smash, you use RX, use all these Q banks at the beginning, but there's this sense of calmness, right? Even if you get them wrong, you're like, oh my goodness, I just got them wrong, right? It's not a big deal. But then the moment you click the start button, right? Now when you pick that answer, it's locked in forever, right? Like there's no going back. Once you finish your block, there's no going back, right? And you got 7 blocks to do. I'm going to start with Dr. Wilner. How do you avoid panicking on the test?
Okay. First of all, I have to say that the day before, I can't sleep. I got to the bed from 9 p.m. and at 3 a.m. I was still trying to get sleeping. I can't. I decided to go out for work. I go out, I work during 1 hour, and I came back to the hotel at 5 a.m. I tried to sleep maybe 1 hour or less than 1 hour. And at 6.5, I wake up, try to do some stretching and fast exercising during 10 minutes, but put some music. And for example, Happy from Bruno Mars, I was singing, I tried to relax myself. And when I stayed the night before in a hotel close to the test center, maybe only 200 meters. I walked from the hotel to the test center. But when I arrived to the center, I was relaxed, and I was initially scared about not having the stamina for the whole 7 blocks, but I had a little breakfast, only 2 eggs, some oats, and coffee. And I tried to, during the exam day, to eat things with low glycemic index, protein bar and banana, for example. And I was surprised that after the 7 block, I was fresh, like I was beginning the exam.
So when you were actually doing each block, there's something called like when, see, this happens to students during the test. They'll pick the answer, right? Then you're like, oh my God, I'm not sure. I think, geez, you're tired of looking to your first aid or to your step 2. I think I've sent, and then you get to the next block, right? And that question is still lingering in your head, right? You're still remembering, like, I think I got it wrong. Geez, oh my goodness. Oh, it was Eve. I picked the wrong one. How did you lock yourself in, block to block?
This also happened to me a couple of times, but I decided before the exam that I won't change my answer. If I pick an answer, I will die with the answers. This is why I managed to not change my answers, because when I was practicing in the QBank, I used to change a lot of answers, and I found that changing answers is very bad. This is why I decided before the exam, I won't change my answers.
No matter what?
Not exactly no matter what. If I'm really sure, 100% sure, I can change it. But if I'm not 100% sure, I won't change my answer. This is why I try to get forward and avoid to review the answers. I finish every block with 10 minutes left. I just lost the exam. I didn't review the
You didn't go back. You didn't
No.
go back to look at your answers?
I didn't go back.
Dr. Masanga, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, what I would say, yeah, I would agree that, changing answers is bad. Also, from my step 1 experience, what I would, encourage other people who are trying to take step 1 or your board exams, right? Just know that, your score is much more than what you know, like on the actual step 1 exam. The night before, just be prepared that you might not sleep. You're listening to his story here that, he could not sleep. I could not sleep, like, the night before as well, like I said. So depending on how you're practicing, like over the last few days, just put yourself to extreme conditions, because you never know how it's going to be. You might get there, something frustrates you, the proctor and whatever it is, and you end up having like a bad day. You want to avoid that. Even if it happens, you don't want it to impact your score, so much. But what I would also say in terms of, being able, so if your routine, especially on the last month, matters a lot. I'm a slow reader, and I'll tell you that each block I finished with a few seconds to spare, like, some of them maybe 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 50 seconds. But one thing that I still remember about my exam was there was only one or two blocks that I finished with about 3 minutes to spare. I started going back and changing some answers, and they were all wrong. So it was actually good for me to finish with 10 seconds. It means that I did not have time to go back and be messing around and changing correct answers to wrong answers. I'll tell you something. It's a unique experience when you get into that exam. You're going to come out and think, did I do well or whatever it is? Trust your prep, especially for step 1. Trust your prep, your board reviews, your board scores like NBME. Trust your prep how it was. For my step 1, it's not like, if someone hears that you had 253 or whatever it is, they think it was an easy exam. It wasn't. I'll tell you that in my exam, I just felt like, it was a weird dream where I was just flying and there was nothing around me. I don't know what's going on to me or whatever it is. But that said, at least I think maybe at least 180 of the 280 questions that I had, at least I knew like they were easy material that you can get. Like I said, for you to start getting like higher scores, yeah, you have to have like, what ended up happening to me is, for the most part, those difficult questions, it will be like, I think I might have seen this and my brain is just telling me that, this is the answer. I pick it and I move on. And I waited for 3 weeks. When the results came, they still confirmed that, my prep and what my BMEs were telling me was actually correct. So, you might not be sure why, because you have done like 3,000 or 6,000 questions or whatever it is. You don't know, but your brain has a way, because you are under so much pressure. You are reading the questions really fast. Sometimes you just read the question and you can see that C is the answer. You cannot explain it or whatever it is. Then you start looking at these distractors or whatever it is if you have time. There's a reason why you are, just pick an answer. If you were able to, when you were preparing, and you have realized that, I realized earlier on in my NBMEs as well, that whenever I would change my answer, mostly even when I was doing UWorld, when I would change my answer, mostly I'm picking, from a correct answer to a wrong answer. That's a bad thing. And even when I went into my exam, I did it because I had extra time on 1 or 2 blocks, and that was a disaster. And even checking those, because I would remember those questions, obviously, because I've changed. Some of them, after changing it, when the time just ends, then I'm like, oh no. Time has already moved and you're moving on. So whenever you deviate from your plan, especially what you're doing and what's working on over the last month, if you are going to change that plan, especially on your exam, usually it will be disastrous, because now you are doing something that's unproven, or that you have already proven yourself that it doesn't work. And now obviously what do you expect? It ends up not going so well. So just work on your routine. Changing answers, I don't know, but for some people maybe you can change or whatever it is, but in my experience as well, it's a bad idea. Pick one, just end the block when you're done and move on. Don't think about the previous question. I mean, I had 1 or 2 questions where I would just move, like I've forgotten something minor, and I come back and I know what the answer is, but where I'm still wavering between 2 answers. Is it A, is it B, or whatever it is? It doesn't waste, whatever what answer I chose like the first time, usually that usually tends to be correct, and I end up thinking myself out of the question.
I have a question for you guys. There's a break between your 4th block, right? You get that 1 hour break. You have your phone on you. You thought about those 2 or 3 questions in block number 3. Do you guys Google to see, or did you bring your first aid with you, or just Google it? Like, let me just check on Wikipedia real quick.
I would just say, a few words. What's the point? No, I won't do it. I don't even want to open any other material or anything. I think the materials that I had, I only last looked at them like just before the exam started. What's the point? You have already answered. You're not going to be able to correct them. You only have anxiety. If you find out that you did great, then it's okay. But what if you find out that you didn't do well? It's going to affect you on other blocks. You only have anxiety and everything. So just focusing on what's coming. That block, you're supposed to relax as much as you can. Breathe in, breathe out. You make sure you have enough caffeine in your system, and continue.
Dr. Wheeler, did you do it?
No, I didn't. I'm agree with Dr. Musanza and confirm that you lost a question can only increase your anxiety. I try to avoid that.
Yeah, I mean,
I got my phone.
If you got it,
did you take? Where did you put your phone?
In my locker. I go to my phone only for football notice. I try.
Yeah, I mean, texting friends and and even with friends, not talking about the exam, talking about other things, looking at other memes, and just relax and continue, because it's not going to change anything. Yeah, if you got it, it's okay. Then if you got it wrong, what sort of remedy are you going to do? Because that question doesn't predict what other questions you're going to get. So it will just give you anxiety, and that you don't need that day. Yeah, you really want to decrease. You have enough stress in your life that you want to, relieve that stress as much as you can, not to add more stress to it, because it will.
Did you guys answer every question?
Yes, I did. Every question. Yes.
What about you, Dr. Musanza? Did you answer every question?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. Let me see. I think probably I might have a few questions. I think they were coming to everyone.
Okay. Yeah, we got a couple questions. Let's get to them real quick before we wrap up. So we've got a question here from Rodino. Congrats to you both, doctors. What's the requirement to apply for preliminary program? And what makes it different from applying directly to a residency program?
Can you repeat the question?
What's the requirement to apply for prelim programs?
Just your application. If you are eligible to apply for any specialty, be it peds, internal medicine, or whatever it is, then you're eligible to apply for a prelim position as well. Be it transitional year, prelim surgery, prelim internal medicine, prelim ops and gynae, or whatever it is. But usually those ones, yeah. I mean, yeah, if you can apply to residency, basically meeting the requirements. If you are ECFMG certified or whatever it is, you should be able to apply technically to any specialty, even neurosurgery or anything. It's just that those positions, it's just only for a year, and they're usually meant for people who already have advanced positions. But I have people that I know as well who do not have advanced positions who are actually reapplying this year to get an advanced spot like for next year. So anyone can apply, no limitations or anything. Just depends. If you're interested in surgery, then prelim surgery can be okay as well. If you're interested in internal medicine, it could be okay as well.
So that's a little small secret we've been sharing with a lot of our IMG students in our program, that when you guys apply to residency, I'm actually glad you talked about you had 3 backup, because I thought you just applied radiology. You applied radiology, neurology, and internal medicine, right? And prelim. So for you guys, everyone applying to when you guys apply to residency, rather than waste a whole year if you don't match at home, make sure IMGs don't tell you this because they don't want you to apply for those preliminary spots. All right. So there's all these programs across the country, internal medicine, surgery, right? They have all this prelim available, and it's like your backup plan in case you don't match your primary residency. So if you, let's say, apply to radiology, or you apply to even internal medicine, right? You can apply straight internal medicine. If you get in, you do 3 years, you're done. All right. If you apply OBGYN, you match it to 4-year OBGYN, you're good, you're done, right? There are other specialties that do require that prelim year. It's like, I call it 1+. They always call it the 1+ year. So radiology is typically 4 years, but you do 1 year prelim. General surgery is 1 year prelim plus 4 years of actually like real surgery, okay? But there's also prelim by itself, which means you're just an intern, okay, in a hospital. And you're going to do rotations just like an intern, but you are not in that hospital actually as a resident. Like after your 1 year is over, you got to go back and reapply the following year through ERAS again. And that program probably is not going to take you. So don't presume that, oh, I'm in this prelim program for internal medicine. The program director is going to give me a spot next year. You pretend that these people are not going to take you, and you're going in with a fresh mind. But in our last IMG Success webinar, the speaker told us, guys, that allows you to make $50,000 a year, right? For free. Like, get letters of recommendation from a program, right? Opportunity for research, even while as you do your prelim year with the attendees that are in the institution. If they're doing a research study, you can enroll with them, right? So the opportunities for you to get into the American healthcare system as an IMG, if you don't match into your residency of choice, is that prelim backup. So make sure you guys all, even if you don't match into, apply anyway, because it's the best of both worlds. Because if you don't, you sit at home for a year, knocking on doors, looking for research with somebody else, rotations, things to boost your application for the next 1 year. So what do you think, Dr. Musonza?
No, it's true. I think people you have to look at your situation and how it can help you, like as an individual. Sitting like the whole year and then reapplying, there isn't much that you can do because observership is not going to cover it. It's US clinical experience. You have patient responsibility and everything. Nothing is going to beat that. Because once you're graduate, unless you are in medical school and you still have to finish, and it's understandable because you can still do electives and stuff. But if you have already graduated, like most IMGs, when they make the decision to come here to the United States, it means you have already graduated. You cannot do electives or anything. You can only do observership or externship. But those, they don't really carry a lot of weight. When you start, as compared to a prelim position. So yeah, it's worth looking at, and you can still apply even in the regular season. You can just apply to your regular specialty that you want. But during SOP, there's always going to be a lot of open prelim spots that you can end up matching into. what I would say for prelim year, then even if you match there, you have to start working from the time you match and you know you have a prelim position. Just know that, you know, time moves fast. We just started in July and now applications are coming like end of September. And if I have to look at us, we've just been adapting to the new system and everything. You might not be able to do quite a lot, but yeah, you do have other physicians you would have worked with for the 3 months. They can write good recommendation letters for you, you know, much better than, you know, probably when you applied initially and you had like home country recommendation letters, or, you know, the recommendation letters were not that good. And the program can end up taking you. Also, if you work really hard in that program, they can end up taking you, but it's not guaranteed. You have to earn it. And, you know, it's not easy, but at least it's, you know, it can help to bridge, like, you know, that time between, you know, when you're transitioning from, you know, taking the board exams and getting into residency. It takes time, and it's certainly a possibility and that's worth looking at.
Now, here's a question from Collins. If someone is not confident that they have reached their desired step 1 score with MBME, and they can no longer push their step 1 eligibility date further without forfeiting the registration money, haven't pushed it once before, what do you advise? So basically, he or she's not hitting the MBME scores to kind of get ready to take step 1, and that eligibility date is about to expire, and he doesn't want to lose the money. What do you?
I mean, if I have to answer that one, yeah, with USMLE, I'm sorry, it's an expensive process, and you know, you put in so much work to it and whatever it is. If you are not hitting your goal, you think you need more time to study, I would rather lose the 1,000 that I paid for the exam. Yeah, it's not worth it. Don't force it. Not at all. Yeah, just save more money. Give yourself some more time. Each person is different, but don't push it. Don't think that miracles are going to happen in the exam. It's a long exam. You know, it takes a lot of knowledge and everything. Take your time, prepare. Like I said, I was never worried about my year of graduation. I remember saying it, oh yeah, I'm not going, like 2018, I did my CS. And from there to 2020, I never took my CK because I wasn't ready. I did not have time or anything. I never rushed it. I have friends who matched good programs. They were ahead on whatever it is. And we were best friends in med school. Each person, your time will come. Take your time. You will make it, but don't push it. It's okay to lose the money if you have already extended your eligibility period. Because, you know, now if you get a low score or you fail, it's going to be on your record like forever. And you know, it's even worse than losing $1,000, you know, that you had to pay for registration. I know $1,000 is, you know, for us different as IMGs when we're coming. Some do have the money, but not everyone has it. And I'm sorry, it's, you know, a lot of money to lose, but don't push it. That would be my advice. I wouldn't do it.
I agree. I agree. Ruth is asking, do all IMGs must go through ECFMG process? And do I need the ECFMG certificate before applying for residency?
I think so. I think, yeah, every IMG, for them to for you to practice medicine in the United States, you have to do through ECFMG.
Okay. Pooja is asking, how many QBanks did you do, Dr. Wilner, and how long did you practice before the exam? I think you said you spent a year, but I think you also talked about you did UWorld, Amboss, and I forgot that.
Yes, I began with UWorld, and first pass of UWorld score was very low. I began scoring about 40%, and I finished the first pass with 56%. I decided after that to do the incorrect and mark questions. I got about 70% from the mark and incorrect ones. After that, we decide, Jeet and I, to do Amboss QBank. And when doing Amboss, I was scoring about 80%. And
so, go ahead.
Yeah, after Amboss, and during the last 2 weeks, I decided to reset the UWorld and go to a second pass. I didn't have enough time to complete the second pass. I only did maybe 77%, but I was scoring between 88 to 90 in the second pass of UART.
Good. So, Dr. Clive, can you explain more about this elective you did? And that would be our last question before
I did not really do electives. If they mean like electives, like the meaning that you're still in medical school and you have to go for an away rotation and everything, I never did those, not even one. Yeah, it was just not an option available to. I did not know about it. Like, you know, I would have taken advantage of it, but I just did not have, you know, the knowledge. So I did not. I can see another question here. I think someone was asking, you know, me, why, what would you say was the reason you finish each block with in the exam with only seconds to spare, considering the fact, based on your score, you have very good knowledge? I'm a slow reader. I know it and I acknowledge it. It has always been like that. So I know, like, I'm a slow reader. Even when I did my CK, it was almost the same thing. Like, you know, that, you know, I'm always finishing, like, you know, right on the dot, like, you know, a minute, 50 seconds or whatever it is. So it's just, you know, more practice and, you know, knowing what you're doing. But in an exam, I think I tend to end up being a little bit more focused and everything. And I remember even doing UWorld, like in the beginning, whether step 1 or step 2, the first few blocks, I wasn't even finishing them. I know for example, CK, I would only do like 30 or 31 questions. That's how much time I was able to do. So I definitely, when I'm practicing, what I'm working on usually is the timing part, because yeah, it tends to be a little bit, you know, hard. But yeah, anyone can do it. Like, you know, the more you practice those UWorld questions, for example, they were long enough, like the vignettes, matching, like, you know, what actually ends up coming in the exam. Something you need a quick question bank, which gives you, you know, long enough vignettes that, you know, will mirror what you're going to experience in the exam. And, you know, that helps a lot. And, you know, just pushing every question and not wasting time. Because the other thing, like we were saying, is how much time do you spend on a question? If you're preparing UWorld, what ends up making me like finish, like, you know, like 30 questions initially when I'm starting. It's like, yeah, I spend too much time on a question. I don't have enough knowledge, like, you know, about, you know, how do I separate these 3 answers or these 2 answers to get the correct answer. But, you know, the more, you know, the far along you go, like with the question bank, the more knowledge you end up having, and you end up, you know, doing a little bit much more faster, and you develop ways, you know, to be much more efficient in answering those questions.
I agree. We have someone here, anonymous, who says, I graduated in 2002 from medical school. Instead, I finished pediatric residency in the Philippines in 2006, practiced in various countries since then, but now I moved to the US. Not really confident to start over again. I feel my chances are slim. What do you advise? What do you think, Dr. Musanzi?
I don't think, you know, as a person, it's all about realizing how you can achieve your dream, all right? Like, you know, if he or she wants to practice here in the United States, I don't see why year of graduation should be a limitation. As long as you do well on your board exams, obviously you have to network a little bit more to get to know, like, you know, a few people like in the program and everything. If you do well on your exams and you can show, you know, the reason why you are doing it, obviously there's always a good enough reason. It's all about how you explain it, because they will ask, what have you been doing and everything, and you show that, you know, you're going to be part of a team, you are willing to learn, like, you know, work in a new culture and everything, and, you know, having a full experience during residency. I think, you know, you'll be given a chance without any issues.
You know, so I get this all the time, old IMGs. I think I've seen people match after 13 years. And like you said, it's all about networking. So when you come to the United States, you can't stay home and just presume that you're going to match. You need connections, right? You need to get into the system. Like, you know, like Dr. Musanzi did at MPH. If you have to do that to get connection and networking and research, and also the question you have to ask yourself, do you really still want to practice medicine for the rest of your life, or you want to give up on ever practicing medicine at the bedside again? That's the most important question you have to ask yourself. And if the question is, I still want to be a doctor and I want to take care of patients, and I would regret when I'm 80 years old that I never continued this, then you have to do whatever it takes. You can't focus on your past. You can only fix your future. The time is going to pass regardless, right? That's the constant, you know, that we all have. Time will pass unless you're going to be 50, 60, 70 years old, and you're going to look back at your life and say, my goodness, I just gave up on my dream because I didn't want to try. or because I thought it was impossible, right? So I always tell all IMGs, like, everybody has a story. Everybody has challenges. Everybody's gone through so much. But when we come here, we have an opportunity to be in the healthcare system, because there's not many IMGs in the American healthcare systems. We don't have enough, right? Blacks, Latinos, Asians, and Filipinos, whatever country you're from, we don't have enough representation in American healthcare systems of immigrants. And you guys, Dr. Musonga is in residency right now. I can tell you there's more white people in his residency, probably, at least in general, overall, than people from Zimbabwe, right? He's going to be like a unicorn, right? When I was in residency, there were 40 residents. I was the only Black male resident in my entire residency. So you need to understand that our people are waiting for us. They're counting on us to get in, to be able to come back and take care of them. And if you give up right now, that means you're saying, well, I'm not going to get a chance to take care of my own people too, right? Because when the Cuban sees a Cuban doctor, when I go into a room and I say, hola, ¿cómo estás, mi Dr. Aresina? They're like, oh my goodness, he speaks Spanish. I'm like, I really don't speak a lot of Spanish, poquito de español, but then they start to get that instant communication. When a Black person comes into the ER and they see me, they light up with so much joy and excitement. And they're like, oh, I'm so glad. Can you be my family doctor? I'm like, I don't do family medicine, right? If you don't understand how bad, and there's so much disparity, racial disparity, our people get the poorest amount of access to healthcare. Black people, Asians, Latinos, African Americans, right, are the one that gets the poorest healthcare in America. So if we don't gather together and work our tail off to get into the system, our people will continue to suffer, right? So this is bigger than you. The purpose of why I do these webinars is because I am in the system and I see what I see every single day. There's 200 ER doctors in my hospital. There's only 4 Black male doctors in there. 4. That's it. So what do you expect, right? So stop looking at your age, stop looking at the year of your graduation, and I need you to look into the future and say, this is truly what I truly want. If you want to be part of the Army, you want to be part of people who's going to change the healthcare system so we can be more, less disparity, teach our own people, be able to be that voice that people are looking up to so you can make a change in your own community. This is the moment. This is why I do what I do, guys. That's why I bring people like Dr. Wilner, Dr. Musonza, because I know there's not a lot of Zimbabweans in his residency. I can go to his hospital right now, probably not see one from Zimbabwe.
No, if there's no other Zimbabwean in my program, that's the other thing that people think. You don't really need to know someone, or both programs, like for my prelim and where I'm going to do my advanced program. I don't know anyone there, not the program director. I've never had a senior there or whatever it is. I just applied. I just presented, just present your case. It could be that, for example, you will still be able to match into residency. So many things happen all over the world. There's a conflict. You were thinking of settling with your family and everything, and things changed. You didn't really intend to do residency, and now you find yourself here in the United States. And rather than changing a career, even if you graduated in 2002, present your case, tell them these were the changes, and I'm going to be dedicated enough. I'm willing to work hard, be part of a team and everything. They'll see through it and they'll give you an opportunity. But don't just, leave without knocking the door, as many doors as you can, or whatever it is, literally. Yeah, knock those doors. Some are going to be, for example, in my case, I was telling Dr. Adesina the other day that, I first talked to an African doctor, a Kenyan doctor, the first time I came here, just to talk to him so that I could do an observership or externship and get a recommendation letter. And basically he was telling me that, USMLEs are really hard. He's an IMG. He went through the same process, but he didn't want to help. I met so many people like that, even looking for jobs. I told you last year I had to apply to hundreds of positions, and you end up getting to choose where you want to go. So, knock as many doors as you can. That's my advice. Some are going to be, they will not open or whatever it is, but leave it. Never give up. Go to the next door until you find the door that finally opens for you. There's so many doors there that will open for you as a person. Never give up, and just do it. You'll be able to achieve something.
All right, this is our final question. Step 1 is going to pass, fail. Yeah, I don't know about that. But for the next application cycle, most IMGs will still have numerical score because everybody that's taking the exam, they all have numerical score. So what would be the disadvantage to just have a pass? or should I just wait to further out to apply? Just maybe take the pass fail one.
What I would say, right, about pass fail, you know, for IMGs, I think personally, this is my personal opinion. I think it puts us at a disadvantage. I mean, because at the end of the day, if you just have a pass fail, right, they're writing like, you know, pass fail, you are applying as a candidate, right? And they have a pass fail, someone who might be even mediocre than you, but just because they're graduating from Yale or Harvard, they will take them. They will not take you. If they just have, you know, two candidates, right? You have a pass fail, both of you, no score. You might be better than, I know a lot of IMGs, they go to good medical schools, they are hardworking, and they can get better scores than, you know, some of the medical schools here. So I think it's a disadvantage for IMGs in that way, because if a program director is going to be sitting there and they have to choose who to interview or to rank in their program, someone, even if they, you know, just the name that they have, it's unfortunate that's how it is. But if you are going to have a numerical score and that person at Yale has like 20 points lower than your score, the program director is going to swallow his pride and they're likely going to, you know, give you a chance. So that said, yeah, we still have step 2 and maybe step 3, and probably you can do a little bit of research to boost your CV and everything, you know, as a candidate. But I think for IMGs, it's a little bit of a disadvantage. If you think you can get a really good score, then go for it when there's a numerical score. As long as that score is there, they're going to use it, program directors, in as much as they can tell you that, oh, we don't have filters, it's pass fail or whatever it is. If it's there and it's really low, they might not call you for an interview, even though it's pass fail. You know, it's just unfortunate. When you take it, if you still have to take it between now and January when they're changing, make sure you give it your best shot, you get the best possible score, because even if it changes to pass fail, I'm sure a program director who sees it, they're still going to use it, like, you know, as a criteria to whether they want to invite you for an interview or not.
So this is like the biggest like elephant on the internet right now, right? Step 1 is going pass fail, and I concur with you. Think about it. If you're up, everybody's coming with a pass. Imagine 2 applicants. Oh, I get a pass fail and I'm applying to neurosurgery, like freaking neurosurgery, right? And you say, well, I got a pass too. Like, you know, the guy also got a pass, right? You know, you should take me. They're like, dude, you're applying for neurosurgery. Let's be clear, right? And we all know 250s, 240s, that's like what the cutoff for them to get into neurosurgery, right? So I think 2022 is going to be a very, very interesting year. All right. The programs, this is my prediction. If you have a score for US students, the dichotomy will be like programs that still have scores for super competitive radiology, ophthalmology, derm. They're still going to use those scores while it's still available to them. For sure. Guaranteed 1000%. Because they're like, man, listen, we got people that got 250s. Thank you for using the pass fail, but man, go get me a 250 on your step 2 CK and give me a call. All right. You know, so for the US students who are here, they're also going to use, whoever's taking from January, they're going to apply next cycle. They're all going to have pass fail on their records, but the IMGs before are going to have scores. So what's happening in US schools right now is all the students are like, I'm going to take my step 2 CK before I apply for next year's cycle. So even if they have a pass fail on step 1, like I'm applying for dermatology. What do you think? They're going to take me with a pass fail in derm? That ain't happening. So they will take step 2 CK, get a freaking ridiculous step 2 CK score, and then do a dermatology research to do like the magna cum laude. They get all these awards, this, you know, research and MBA, whatever they still require for them to make themselves competitive. And then you get a letter of recommendation to dermatology, like, you know, rotation, right? You know, which comes from a dermatologist, right? And then puts them at that competitive advantage. For IMGs, my prediction is they will still use the score on us. However, you know, they will now scrutinize your step 2 CK and step 3 scores moving forward. And my worry is this. Most IMGs are going to be excited this is going pass fail. It's a double-edged sword. If you get just 194 on step 1, which is the passing score, and when it goes pass fail, you got only 194. When you take step 2 CK is literally step 1 on steroids with management and diagnosis. You are going to struggle with step 2 CK because you put half effort into step 1 to pass it next year. And that would kind of bite you back. So study for step 1, even when it goes pass fail, like you're starting to get a 250. Because when you get to step 2 CK, it gets easier because you know all the diseases from step 1 are going to be on step 2 CK with management. So that's my prediction. They're going to use our step 2 CK moving forward for IMGs and use the numerical one from the years past. And after 2022, it's just going to be all step 2 CK and step 3. And doing clinical rotation is going to be super important. So you get letters of recommendation for the specialty exactly, because then they're judging you by the experience of what you perform when you guys do rotations with us in the emergency department, the internal medicine department. That's my prediction. We get to see. I may be wrong.
No, I agree. Now one thing that I didn't have that, as advice is, well, yeah, I just love research, but at the end of the day, that could make or break your application. It means if it's pass fail, they're going to scrutinize your CV a lot more to see what have you been doing. And research is one of the ways that you can actually end up increasing your, improving your CV, like in terms of applying. And one thing, let me just say this, I did not know it before I came to the United States. You can start even now with COVID-19. It's unfortunate, it's a pandemic. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but what COVID-19 has brought is most of these conferences now are being done virtually. So wherever you are, if you're in Zimbabwe, if you're in, I don't know, in Asia or Europe, you can still, present at American conferences and everything, and that will boost your CV. If you want to apply for a research position, maybe a year when you're bridging between, finishing your board exams and getting into residency, you definitely can, you definitely can do that. So what I would say is there are a lot of data sets that you can use. You can make a poster, an abstract, present at a conference, because that's good. That stuff is going to really matter. If you have some research questions that you have been talking about, it helps you even when you go to your interviews. Probably that's why my interviewers never even had time to ask me about, what my year of graduation was, because I had so much to talk about in terms of research, where we are going, how I see myself, like, about 5 or 10 years, what sort of contributions I'll be able to make. That the question about, what have I been doing over the last 5 years? Yeah, I've been trying to, to take the board exams and everything, but it was clear there. So if you are in medical school, you haven't graduated or whatever it is, do seriously consider research, start working on some poster presentations, abstracts. Most medical schools, they still have like, student research conferences or whatever it is that they do. Take advantage of those and have them on your CV, because it really matters. You find something to talk about and it actually makes you stand out, because there are some programs which might require residents who have a little bit of research. Some don't care. But here in the United States, we mainly use evidence-based medicine. Anyways, you have to know, like, what a research article means, because your patients are going to ask you. They're sitting in front of you. You are telling them they have a particular diagnosis. But what's the prognosis? How are you going to be able to tell them the prognosis? I know it's individualized, but you can talk about a research paper that was done on X number of patients, and what sort of outcomes. You start getting into statistics, probability. You're not saying that they will get those complications, but at least you're saying that we have found that in a certain percentage and everything. So you do, as a physician here in the United States, you do use a lot of research, in as much as you might not realize it. You do need it so much. So if you start doing it in med school, it's going to be important, especially with pass fail. You never know what's going to make you stand out as a candidate. So take advantage of it. Whatever it is that you can do that can, leadership positions, electives, observership and everything, just do those things and consider research as well. You can do it wherever you are.
Wow. We're going to finish out with Dr. Wilner. What would be your recommendation to students considering SMASH USMLE as a review course?
The SMASH USMLE review course helped me a lot to improve from 120 to 45, I think. Without the help of Jeet and Dr. Adeshina, it won't be possible, maybe. This is why I would recommend the course. And I'm very grateful nowadays with Jeet and Dr. Adeshina for bringing this platform and the support, the daily support I had from both during this long process. Very grateful. I think that if as an IMG, very old graduate IMG, who left medical school so many years ago, it would be very helpful to have someone to guide you during that process, during that long process.
All right, there you have it. Oh my goodness, we're over time. There's just so much to unpack within these two amazing doctors. Gracias, doctors. I mean, I am so proud of you, brothers. Just to see Africans and Asians and Zimbabweans, our people. You guys have no idea how much joy to see people like me, right? Doing amazing things. Like it makes me blush sometimes because I'm waiting for you guys. We got Dr. Musonza in residence. I can't wait for Dr. Wilner to be an ER doc here in the States and, taking care of this patient emergency department. But I just want to say thank you so much for your words of wisdom, for sharing your experience with us, for giving other IMGs just like you that there is hope, that they should not give up on their dream, no matter how hard it is. You guys have worked so hard to get to your point, and I only wish you the best in everything you guys do moving forward. And thank you for doing this, coming on the show. Can we give them a round of applause and just say thank you to these amazing Black doctors who are going to change the face of medicine? You guys are the future. I cannot absolutely wait. This is inspirational. This is motivation. And God bless each and every one of you. If you guys want to just share some parting words and some words of wisdom before we let you guys go, we'll start with Dr. Musonza.
Yeah, I mean, I had a few people asking like for Instagram. I think I put it here. It's just Clive Musonza, Clive_Musonza. And I shared a link also like of the scholarships from Washington University in St. Louis. I actually got the merit one, the BJC. So you can, someone can look at it and the application process if they are interested. And there are so many universities, you don't have to consider those. So many universities that offer scholarships and everything. Reach out, apply, you get something. And feel free to reach out. I know it's the application season and everything. I'm happy to help whichever way I can. Just, reach out even on Instagram. I'll respond. It's a bit busy, but I'll definitely get back and respond to you guys. I'm happy to interact with anyone. It was hard. It's hard, it's long and everything, but it's very much possible. You have that greatness in you. Reach out and you will make it.
Dr. Wilner, we'll let you close us out.
Oh, thank you. I would say that I receive help from so many people during that process that now I feel that I have to pay back and be available to do the same that other people like Dr. Adesina did and does with me. And this is why I will be available. If I can help, I will let my phone number. If I can share some materials, some advice, some guidance, I will be happy to do that.
Okay, guys, we're gonna let you guys go. Thank you so much. I'll be talking to you guys offline and just messaging you, but God bless each and every one of you. I can't wait for you to start reading those MRI, CT scans, doing your data science work and research and just doing amazing things. And Dr. Wilner, we wish you the best in step 2 CK. We can't wait for you to come to the States, do some rotations, your OET, and let's match it to emergency medicine and let's get it. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh my God, guys, this is like one of the most amazing webinar ever. Like, for you guys who came to the show today, I've learned so much myself. You guys can hang up Dr. Clive and Dr. Musonza. You guys are done. I'm just gonna, share a few parting words with the audience. Oh, you can type in if you have anything. I put Dr. Clive's to follow him on Instagram, guys. Make sure you follow him on Instagram. Clive_Musonza. I think I dropped it in there. He also has been posting it. So, but guys, if you guys haven't been part of, I know a lot of our students are here with Smash USMA reviews already, but if you guys are not part of Smash USMA reviews yet, like I'm going to give you an opportunity so we can work with you. All right. So is Dr. Wilner on Instagram? Are you on IG?
No, I'm not.
No. Okay.
I'm letting my phone number and my Facebook account.
Okay.
And keep in touch.
Awesome.
Yes.
So if you guys haven't been part, I know, a lot of students are probably already part of us, but you guys have heard from Dr. Wilner today. Going from 120 to 245 is not impossible. You could be the next one. You are going to be the next one. We have the framework. We have the study strategy. And, Pooja is asking, if my MBME score is not improving, what to do? All right, let me tell you first thing. You still have content deficit, all right? And if your score is still not improving, you need a one-on-one tutor. Dr. Wilner worked with Jeet, and he was his tutor multiple sessions, and saw a significant improvement in his knowledge base. So, if you're still struggling, I always tell students all the time, I said, listen, you need a tutor, all right? You need basically, one-on-one, because, this is the benefit of having tutoring, guys. You get a live feedback for someone who is teaching you live while you are learning. You also get to identify your content deficits immediately, because most of the times when we study, right, you guys are studying for step 1 or step 2, CK or step 3, you read a section of the book, you don't know what the hell you just read. You don't even know the significance, the clinical significance of that fact or that information. And then you skip it. You're like, maybe it's not important, right? And then what happens is a month later, you're doing questions over and over. And then you find out that that information is hunting you down, right? So, that's the advantage of having one-on-one. Now, it may take 10 hours, 20 hours, 40 hours, but the benefit of that is it takes time, right, to make those improvements. And the more you meet with someone, and also another thing is that make sure you're following the instruction your tutor gives you to a T, all right? And because sometimes you might be like, oh, I got this all figured out. Like, if you have it all figured out, then you don't need a tutor, right? Make sure you're coachable, right? Nobody knows it all. Like, I still have to read, study, everything I teach you guys. Don't you know, like, I have to sit down and read this information, break it down in my head, simplify it, and then come and explain it to you. And that's me. And I'm an ER physician, right? And so when you're learning with a tutor, make sure that you're asking the right questions during your tutoring session. Number 2, make sure that, when they give you instructions, like when we meet next week, I want you to be able to finish this section, and I want you to come back with your questions. So that when your first 30 minutes, like, hey, listen, I was reading this section and why is this important, right? Why is this important, right? And also the next thing is that always know that not understanding pathophysiology will hurt you forever. We talked about how to memorize information earlier. Memorization, one thing. But let's say I wake you up in the middle of the night and I say, Doc, explain to me the pathophysiology of myocardial infarction. Let me just say that, right? And without a textbook, right? And you cannot tell me, well, patients have, atherosclerotic plaque rupture from high LDLs buried down into the endothelial cell membrane, and boom, they eventually get an atherosclerotic plaque with macrophages. When that ruptures, you got a bunch of fibrin with platelets and red blood cells. They stick together. They block the left anterior, descending artery. Patients get ischemia, right? They get chest pain going to their arm, to their neck. But you're going to see ST segment elevation, at least 2-3 AVF. If it's an inferior MI, if it's if it's a lateral wall MI, it's going to be V4, V5, V6, and 1 an AVL. That's what I'm going to see on EKG. And I'm going to see elevated troponin, because I know that the troponin-tropomyosin complex inside the myocardium allows for contraction, because in the presence of ATP, and I know depolarization across that cardiac membrane is what's going to cause eventually the sarcomeres to release calcium that goes in, boom, causes contraction, right? See how I'm explaining things to you, and I don't have a textbook in front of me, right? And then when you have a myocardial infarction, this is what's going to happen on day 1. And after 24 hours, neutrophils are going to come in. And after 48 hours, macrophages are going to come in. And when macrophages come in, you're going to have fibroblasts, after 3 to 7 days. And what is the complications of that? Patient can get a myocardial rupture. They can get a, mitral valve prolapse, or like a ruptured cardiac tendinate, right? They get mitral regurgitation, or they can get Dressler syndrome after 2 weeks, or they can develop, ventricular arrhythmias, which go into ventricular fibrillation, right? These are the complications of having myocardial infarction. You can get, cardiac tamponade, right? I'm explaining to you the complications of myocardial infarction. I've already gone through the pathogenesis, pathophysiology. I've already explained to you what happens at the molecular level. I've already explained to you what happens at the gross level. I explained to you what's the classic symptoms, and I tell you the risk factors. You're going to have history of, if you have a history of MI, family history of MI, somebody has a history of hyperlipidemia, if somebody has a history of diabetes, high cholesterol, hypertension. These are all the different risk factors, that predispose somebody to myocardial infarction, right? So, you see how, like, I haven't even looked at a book. It doesn't matter what question they throw at me, right? I'm never going to get them wrong because out of my head, I'm already spitting out the information to you. You see that? CKMB is going to be elevated later if somebody has a silent infarct later, maybe a few days after having an actual myocardial infarction. Now, I pretty much covered everything, but the only thing I didn't cover is like the electrophysiology of the heart. But you know what I'm saying? Now, let's say I'm your tutor and we're doing the question together. And then they're talking about Dressler syndrome, a patient that has a myocardial infarction. And you can explain to me the pathogenesis. You can explain to me what happens inside the cells. You explain that. And I'm like, why, are they developing Dressler syndrome? Or why is the patient having ventricular arrhythmias? Why are they having third-degree heart blocks, right? Because if I infarct my inferior, right, my posterior descending artery, right, or my right coronary artery that feeds my SA node, I'm going to get an AV block. Yeah, you see that? Now, you might be memorizing it, but if I remind you that that artery feeds your SA node, then you may be like, oh, that makes sense. Does that make sense? And then I can give you little mnemonics of how to remember them because they can twist and turn them on the exam. And now that's one deficit that's out of the way. And then we keep stacking it down, right? And every disease has that kind of hierarchy. Not all of them, but most of the diseases have that kind of hierarchy. And that's how you're going to eventually start improving, and it takes time. Guys, always have a longer time horizon to understand that the information that somebody's teaching you're going to learn takes a little bit more time. Somebody a fast learner, somebody a slow learner. Look at Dr. Musanza. He said, I'm a slow reader. He's from Zimbabwe. He speaks Spanish, right? Maybe you're a slow reader. You have to understand your weak areas, but then you got to improve on it, right? So, now I always tell you guys, when I first took I never forget, I was a second-year medical student. I took I did UWorld, and I did the first questions, and I got 20%. 20%, guys. That is normal. The problem with most of us, we have ego. Like, I'm a doctor, I'm a smart guy, right? The USMLE is a standardized exam. That's the equal leveler. I got 20% in my UWorld QBank for like the first 3 or 4 months. I was freaking out. I'm like, damn, I'm going to fail this test. That's normal because what's happening is you underestimate the complexity of what it takes to write one clinical question. And the data points you have to know to integrate them all together to be able to finally pick the correct answer. And by the time you go through first day, the first round and the second round, you start to see how everything's connected. So that's why if you see my masterclass when I'm teaching, you see me like we'll be talking about, cardiology, and I'm talking about, renal problems, right? I'm connecting derm problems with this, right? Because what I'm trying to do is teach you from the master's level, right? So that you're seeing it not like at the base, because sometimes you might get lost in the minutia of the information, you forget the big picture. So that's the whole idea of my masterclass program. And when you're just like, oh my God, we're covering everything. Yes, of course I'm covering everything because, the human body is all connected as one piece. You're just learning an individual system, but you got to put it all back together. So if you're struggling, remember you still have content deficit and it takes time. Yes, look at Dr. Wilner. It took him 1 year. Just think about it, 1 year. And he was putting in 14 hours a day. 14 hours consistently for 1 year. Are you doing that? Are you putting, and I'm not saying everybody should put 14 hours, but if you're putting only 6 hours, understand that if you're working, you're married, you have children, you have all these things that's going on in your life. Now, you don't put those things on hold, but understand that it's going to take you longer to get to the same destination, like somebody got from 120 to 245. That's just the absolute truth, right? If I go to my farm, I put in 6 hours to plant corn today, and somebody put in 12 hours. They have done twice the amount of work to plant more corn than I did. So I got to be patient for maybe a year, 2 months, a year and 3 months, because it might take me a little bit longer to get there. So there's no rush. Don't compare yourself to other people, but get help as soon as possible. The biggest mistake I see with a lot of INGs is I'm going to figure it out myself. I would say, no. This is not the stuff you figure out yourself. right? There's no point you trying to figure things out when somebody already has the answer. When somebody already knows how to help you, learn to invest in tutoring programs that are dedicated to get you there faster. Because the time you're going to waste by not investing right now, you're going to pay the price twice. That's why I see IMGs, they'll fail USMLE once, twice, because they've tried on their own. And then they come to me. They come to my program. And I'm like, why did you wait that long? You just wasted 2 years of your life trying to figure things out. Why you could have been done in maybe 8 months or less. You feel me, guys? Be patient with the process. Know yourself. Don't compare yourself to others. Progress is slow, but if you do it consistently, I need your commitment, dedication, consistencies. Commitment, dedication, consistencies. You do that consistently for a year, you're going to see the result. Okay? So if you guys haven't joined the program, I'm going to put the link in here for you guys. So some who have not enrolled yet, that's the link. You can join my masterclass program. It's a live hybrid masterclass. So you won't be able to ask me questions directly, but there's physicians that there to be able to ask all your questions. It's fully integrated. You can get the self-paced course option, and it's only $14.97 for the platinum plan. The value is almost $16,000 worth of value. Look, these are the things you're gonna get when you join my program anyway. You get to come and hear live from doctors, like who have become successful and who wants to be where you are. And my thing in life is I look up to people who have done something greater than I am, because that's where I aspire to. So they teach me the wisdom, they pass it on to me so I can be able to get to my journey and get my destination faster. And that's the secret to success, guys. You're not alone on this journey. There's 40,000 people applying to residency every year. And listen, it's a battle. It's a battle. It's a bloodbath out there. And you can't get there by yourself. You need help. Invest in yourself. Listen, the information you guys got today, you could have had to pay to go to a conference to get it. You could have paid thousands of dollars to go to a conference to go and talk to these people. And I tell you guys all the time, see, I have to go out there and fetch out these IMGs for you. You know why? Once they match, they don't come back. Once they all match, they don't come back. You don't see them anymore. They're working 90, 80 hours, 60 hours a week. They don't have time for you, right? So my job is to go and find the successful ones, because the people you are hanging around with right now or talking to are the people that failed or people that didn't match. That's the problem. So I have to go and find them, bring them out of their residencies so they can come share their stories of success. And please, guys, take notes when you come to these webinars. We're giving you so much value. Absolutely. Okay. So if you have any personal questions you want to ask me, here's my email. I'm going to just drop it in here. All right. You can, or you can follow me on Instagram. Make sure you guys are following me on Instagram, because I drop a lot of stuff on Instagram at SmashUSMLE. That's my Instagram handle. Okay. So if you have any personal question you want to ask me, email me. And for you guys who haven't signed up yet, you guys already seen the success stories we have here. We've got thousands of people that already come through SmashUSMLE. And my mission is to help train you to become a better doctor. I'm obsessed about making you a better physician. And I need you, seriously. I need you guys. You're looking at me right now. I need you in residency. I'm serious. Your patients are waiting. And when you're going through pain, I want you to not give the pain in your head a voice. This is going to be my last words. Do not give the pain in your head a voice. Never say, I can't do this. Oh, this is too hard. This is impossible. Once you say those things and they come out of your mouth, you give them life, and you become what you talk about. Anything that comes out of your mouth eventually becomes your reality. Rather than saying, this is too hard, I don't know how to do this, say, how can I find help to figure this out? You see, when you say things like that, though it's hard, and you say, who can help me get there? Who has the information? How can I solve this problem? When you start to say how, your brain opens up for possibilities. When you say, I can't do this, this is too difficult, my NBME scores are too low, I don't think I can get through this. What you're saying, you have a fixed mindset and you don't see an opportunity for growth. So be very careful the words that come out of your mouth. They sound so subtle, but they determine the course of your life. So do not, no matter how painful, I'll never forget, share this quick story before I leave. In my second year of medical school, I'm sitting down in my apartment studying. I'm sweating. It's in the middle of the summer in June. I was living in this apartment. The AC was really bad. It leaks out, so it was super sweaty. It was like 100 degrees outside. I looked out through the window, and I saw a bunch of young kids playing outside. And I'm a second-year med student. I'm going through my Cuba and go through first aid. I was burning out. I was getting exhausted. I was spending about 12 hours a day. Never forget. I look on Facebook. I see a bunch of people smiling at the beach, and I almost started to cry. I sat down on the on the staircase in my house, and I got depressed. And I asked myself, why am I even doing this? Why am I putting myself through this pain? And this little voice said in my head, says, see those little children playing outside. When they get sick, who's going to take care of them? So when these people you've seen on Facebook, when they get sick, who's going to be available to take care of them? What you're learning right now is transforming you from a human being to a doctor. Embrace the pain. It's not going to last forever. I'm here to be a living testimony to tell you guys, whatever you are going through right now will not last forever. If you give up, however, it will last forever. Pain is temporary. It may last for a minute, an hour, even a year or 2 years, but I promise you, it will not last forever. So whatever you have to do, put in the work today. Don't give your pain a voice. Work as hard as you can. Get help when you get stuck, and y'all shall be a success. All right? All right, guys. For those of you got to be the VIP WhatsApp group, we'll have this video. It's going to be it's all recorded, so we have a video available to you. If you want to be part of my VIP Smart MD WhatsApp group, sign up for the program. We'll get you in. And thank you for each and everyone for coming to the webinar today. It was freaking amazing. We had 2 guests all at once, and we have another special guest coming up in the next week or 2. I'll make an announcement in our Smart MD WhatsApp group soon. Thank you so much. God bless each and every one of you. Be safe out there. Wear your mask. Get vaccinated for this COVID vaccine out there. And let's go be great doctors. Y'all have a great day. Hasta luego. Bye-bye.